Your hand is like a torch each time you touch me. The look in your eye pulls me apart. Don't open the door to heaven if I can't come in. Don't touch me if you don't love me, sweetheart.
In 1966, one of Nashville's top composers was still trying to make a splash as a singer and recording artist, but Hank Cochran had managed to place only 3 releases in the top 30 over the past 4 years. He was giving it everything he had, working a lot of shows, although in the end, Hank's legacy would be the songs he wrote for other artists. Nonetheless, Cochran found himself performing a week-long gig at a club in Minnesota in 1966, where he started composing a new song called Don't Touch Me. Between shows, Hank continued to work on the number, but he just couldn't seem to get to a point where he was satisfied with it. When the week at the club was over, Cochran hopped a plane and headed for Rochester, New York. Hank was dating a 25-year-old singer named Jeannie Seeley, who was performing in Porter Wagoner's touring show just after Norma Jean's departure from the Wagner entourage. Dolly Parton was eventually hired as Norma Jean's permanent replacement. Wagoner, Seeley, and the band were in Rochester for a performance, and Cochran flew there simply to spend some time with Jeannie during his scheduled break. Seeley had already obtained a recording contract with Fred Foster's Monument Records and was looking for a good song to use as her first single. As she was now dating Hank Cochran, one of Music City's best-known tunesmiths, it seemed that with just one innovative idea, Jeannie might have her song. And so it was. Upon seeing her when he arrived in Rochester, the feelings which first inspired Cochran to start writing Don't Touch Me in Minnesota came flooding back to his mind, and he felt an urgent need to finish it because of the song's message. Hank was falling for Seeley, but he had some reservations about getting seriously involved. He was coming off a divorce and didn't want to ever go through anything that painful again. In a sense, the very words Cochran had written explained this fear so eloquently that he might have been afraid to expose his heart to Jeannie and to the world. While Wagoner, Seeley, and the rest of the group were on stage performing, Cochran completed Don't Touch Me, but he became inebriated in the process. After the show, Hank tried to explain his condition to Porter and Jeannie, while at the same time attempting to tell them about his new song. They wanted to hear it right then, but Hank was wasted and couldn't sing or even play the guitar. The next day, though, Cochran did sing it for them, and they both agreed that it would be a big hit for Jeannie. She immediately telephoned Fred Foster in Nashville, explaining that she had found the right song, and asked him to set things up for a session once she got back to town. Meanwhile, a sober and happy Hank Cochran made a trip to Chicago to appear on a local television show. Also on the program happened to be country music megastar Buck Owens. Although Buck hadn't recorded any of Cochran's songs, he was very familiar with the writer and his work. During a break, Hank played Don't Touch Me for Owens, and Buck immediately wanted it. Cochran told him that he couldn't have it because he had already given it to Jeannie Seeley. Who the heck is Jeannie Seeley? Owens wanted to know. I've never heard of her. The writer laughed and then slyly told Buck, "You will as soon as this song comes out." Monument Records pulled Jeannie into the studio when she returned to Nashville. Producer Fred Foster put together a solid recording of Hank's new song, then quickly pressed and shipped the record. Released in March, Jeannie Seeley's Don't Touch Me was on the charts by mid-April. It was almost unheard of for a new act to get that kind of early chart action. Owen Bradley at Decca noted those early numbers with great interest. Bradley immediately knew that it was the song's quality more than anything else that was propelling this new artist. The producer had always liked Cochran's work and thought Don't Touch Me was one of the best things he had written. Owen quickly hatched a plan and met with one of the newest female singers in his Decca stable, Wilma Burgess. Wilma had just put her song Baby into the top 10 and needed a follow-up. Bradley and Burgess decided to immediately cover Seeley's record and make a rush shipping in order to try to beat Jeannie's single up the playlist. With Wilma Burgess's cover of Don't Touch Me, Cochran was concerned for Jeannie. Decca was a much bigger and much more influential label than Monument and could easily beat the smaller label in distribution. Using his own money, Hank hired a couple of promotion men to start plugging the Seeley version in the big markets. This worked in some places, but surprisingly not in Chicago. John Trotter at 50,000-watt powerhouse WJJD stayed hot on the Wilma Burgess release and completely ignored Jeannie's. Decca had a stronger foothold in many of the major markets, leaving the two versions to fight it out in the smaller cities. By late summer, the war was over, but amazingly, Seeley had won. The powerful Decca promotions machine had come up short. Burgess managed to climb to number 12, then tailed off. Jeannie had climbed all the way to number 2, holding that position for 3 straight weeks, but wasn't quite able to reach the summit because of the few big stations like WJJD that remained loyal to Decca's version. Hank Cochran always believed, and rightfully so, that having the two versions of Don't Touch Me going head-to-head at the same time kept Seeley from notching a number 1 record on Billboard's country singles chart. Even years later, when he discussed this, his voice still revealed a slight bitterness. Seeley's version did reach number 1 on the 2 other national charts at the time, Cashbox and Record World, both now gone. In addition, Cochran picked up a couple of BMI awards for the song, and Seeley won the 1966 Grammy Award for Best Female Country Vocal Performance. The record also briefly put Jeannie's name on the Billboard Hot 100 pop chart for the first and only time, topping out at number 85. Over the years, Don't Touch Me has been recorded more times than even writer Cochran can remember, and has become one of the country music industry's most performed songs. In an interesting footnote, even though the Seeley and Burgess versions were battling it out for chart superiority, Jeannie's record would have made it to number 1 in Billboard anyway, except for one small thing. When she was sitting at number 2 and about to make her move up to the top spot, Buck Owens' Think of Me jumped over Seeley and kept her locked in second. On the day that particular chart came out, Owens phoned Cochran, reminding Hank that if he had let him have Don't Touch Me, Cochran's song would have gone to number 1. Hank told Buck that he was still glad he gave it to Jeannie. The record served as a good launch for Jeannie's recording career, which lasted 12 years. Additionally, Hank and Seeley were married soon after Don't Touch Me ended its chart run, and Cochran wrote most of her subsequent hits, including her 2 biggest follow-ups, Wish I Didn't Have to Miss You, a duet with Jack Green, which topped out at number 2 in 1969, and Can I Sleep in Your Arms, which finished at number 6 in 1973.
No.